What if I told you that one of the most daring bank heists in history was masterminded by an artist with no criminal record, fueled by nothing more than cannabis and an overactive imagination? Buckle up, because this is the story of how a group of unlikely robbers pulled off a $19 million heist in broad daylight, right under the noses of the Argentinian police. Our tale begins in the bustling streets of Buenos Aires in 2005. Fernando Araujo, a local artist with a penchant for cannabis, found himself in a peculiar situation. During a routine visit to his psychiatrist, Fernando blurted out an unexpected desire. He wanted to rob a bank. Now, you might be wondering, what could drive an artist to contemplate such a drastic career change? Was it desperation? A misguided attempt at creating the ultimate performance art? Or simply the musings of a mind altered by one too many joints? Whatever the reason, Fernando's psychiatrist didn't take him seriously. After all, this was a man whose criminal experience extended no further than perhaps sneaking an extra cookie from the cookie jar. But little did anyone know, this seemingly innocuous conversation was the spark that would ignite one of the most audacious heists Argentina had ever seen. Fernando, fueled by his newfound obsession, began to wander the streets of Buenos Aires with a newfound purpose. His artist's eye, usually focused on capturing the beauty of the city, now scanned for potential targets. It was during one of these walks that he stumbled upon the Banco Río branch in Acasuso, a wealthy suburb of Buenos Aires. The wheels in his mind started turning. This wasn't just any bank, this was a goldmine of safety deposit boxes, each one potentially filled with cash, jewelry, and other valuables belonging to the area's well-heeled residents. But how does an artist with no criminal experience even begin to plan a bank robbery? Fernando, in true creative fashion, approached it like any other project. He brainstormed, he sketched, he pondered. Should they go in guns blazing during business hours? Or perhaps tunnel in at night like in the movies? Each option had its drawbacks, and Fernando found himself at an impasse. It was then that Fernando had his eureka moment. What if they could combine the best of both worlds? Enter the bank during business hours but escape through a tunnel? It was crazy, it was risky, but it just might work. However, Fernando quickly realized that this wasn't a solo job. He needed a crew, and not just any crew. He needed specialists. Enter Sebastian Bolster, nicknamed the Engineer. Sebastian was Fernando's friend, known for his expertise in electronics and mechanics. When Fernando approached him with this wild plan, Sebastian was understandably skeptical. After all, wouldn't you be if your artist friend suddenly started talking about tunnels and bank vaults? But Fernando's enthusiasm was infectious, and soon Sebastian found himself caught up in the excitement of the challenge. Together, Fernando and Sebastian began the painstaking process of planning. They visited the bank under the guise of being customers, discreetly taking measurements and observing security protocols. They explored the city's vast sewer system, realizing with growing excitement that one of the main tunnels ran right beneath the bank. It was almost as if the city itself was conspiring to help them. But two men do not a heist crew make. Fernando needed more manpower and, crucially, more funds. Enter the mysterious figure known only as the Doctor. Acting as a sort of criminal matchmaker, the Doctor introduced Fernando to Beto de la Torre, a man with a checkered past who would become their financier. Beto, despite his lack of bank robbery experience, brought a crucial element to the team: connections to the underworld and access to weapons. The final piece of the puzzle was Luis Vitet, colorfully nicknamed the Violent One. With his hot-blooded temperament and extensive criminal record, Luis was initially a wild card, but his skills in acting and fraud would prove invaluable in the heist to come. With the team assembled, the real work began. For an entire year, these unlikely conspirators worked tirelessly on their plan. They dug their tunnel, a back-breaking task that tested their resolve daily. They crafted specialized tools, including a hydraulic cannon designed to crack open safety deposit boxes in seconds. They even went so far as to build a small dam in the sewer to ensure they could escape by boat. As D-Day approached, tension mounted. Would their crazy plan actually work? Had they overlooked some crucial detail that would bring the whole operation crashing down around them? These questions must have weighed heavily on Fernando's mind, as January 13, 2006, dawned bright and clear in Buenos Aires. At 12:38 p.m., the calm of the Banco Río branch was shattered as Fernando, Beto, and Luis burst through the doors, weapons drawn. "Everyone on the ground!" Luis shouted, his acting skills on full display as he played the role of the hardened criminal to perfection. The bank employees and customers, shocked by the sudden intrusion, complied immediately. Meanwhile, outside the bank, life in Acasuso continued as normal for a few precious minutes. But this calm was soon shattered as police sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. The robbers' hearts must have been racing. This was the moment of truth. Would their plan hold up under pressure? As police surrounded the bank, Luis stepped up to the plate. Remember his skills in acting and fraud. This was their time to shine. He began a masterful performance of misdirection, keeping the police on their toes with a series of demands and threats. Pizza for the hostages? Of course. A negotiator? Absolutely. Each request bought them more precious time. While Luis kept the police distracted, Fernando and Sebastian were hard at work in the vault. The cannon they had so painstakingly crafted was put to the test, cracking open safety deposit box after safety deposit box. Gold, cash, and jewels quickly filled their bags. Can you imagine the mix of exhilaration and terror they must have felt? Every second brought them closer to unimaginable wealth, but also to potential capture. As the hours ticked by, tension mounted both inside and outside the bank. The police, growing increasingly frustrated, were on the verge of storming the building. Inside, Fernando and his crew knew their time was running out. They had managed to crack open 147 safety deposit boxes, far short of their original goal, but still a staggering haul. At 7 p.m., 6 hours after the robbery began, Luis made his final call to the police negotiator. "We're done," he announced. "We're going to surrender. But first, we want pizza for everyone." It was a bizarre request, but one that bought them the final minutes they needed. As the police scrambled to fulfill this last demand, Fernando and his crew made their move. They herded the hostages into a room, leaving behind what appeared to be a bomb, but was, in fact, an elaborate fake. Then, in a move that would leave the police scratching their heads for days, they simply vanished. Imagine the scene when the police finally stormed the bank, only to find no robbers, no shootout, just confused hostages and a pile of toy guns. The violent bank robbers had pulled off their heist without firing a single shot or harming a single hostage. It was a magic trick on a grand scale, leaving the authorities baffled and the public captivated. But where were our intrepid robbers? While the police were busy securing the bank, Fernando and his crew were already zipping through the sewers in their inflatable boat, their bags heavy with an estimated $19 million in cash and valuables. They emerged from a manhole 200 meters away from the bank, where a modified van waited to whisk them away to their safe house. As night fell over Buenos Aires, 5 men sat in a nondescript house, their eyes glued to the TV. News reports flashed scenes of confusion outside the Banco Río branch. Police swarmed the area, bomb squads cautiously approached the explosive left behind, and bewildered hostages gave interviews about their ordeal. And there, in the safety of their hideout, Fernando and his crew allowed themselves to finally relax and celebrate. They had done it. They had pulled off one of the most audacious heists in Argentina's history. But as any good heist movie will tell you, the robbery is only half the story. The real challenge is getting away with it. And this is where our tale takes a turn. For a while, it seemed like they had indeed pulled off the perfect crime. The gang split up, each taking their share of the loot and heading in different directions. They had agreed never to see each other again, a clean break to ensure their mutual safety. However, the old adage, "no honor among thieves," would soon prove true. Remember Beto, our financier. His downfall came from an unexpected quarter, his own wife. In a twist of irony, it was not the millions of dollars in stolen loot that raised suspicions, but a mere $300,000 that Beto's wife had helped herself to from their share. When Beto confronted her about the missing money, an argument ensued. Fearing that he might leave her for another woman with their newfound wealth, Beto's wife made a decision that would unravel the entire operation. She went to the police. From there, it was only a matter of time. Despite their best efforts to cover their tracks, the police were able to piece together the identities of the robbers through phone records and witness statements. One by one, Fernando and his crew were tracked down and arrested. The trial that followed captivated Argentina. Here were 5 ordinary men, an artist, an engineer, a mechanic, a small-time crook, and a martial arts instructor, who had managed to outwit the police and pull off a heist worthy of Hollywood. The public was divided. Were these men criminal masterminds deserving of harsh punishment, or folk heroes who had managed to stick it to the system without harming anyone? In the end, the sentences handed down were surprisingly light. The use of fake weapons during the robbery played a significant role in reducing their jail time. Fernando and Sebastian, with their clean prior records, received just over 2 years of house arrest. Beto and Luis, with their previous convictions, served longer terms, but still far less than one might expect for a $19 million heist. But perhaps the most intriguing part of this story is what happened to the money. Despite the arrests and convictions, only a small portion of the stolen cash and valuables was ever recovered. Rumors swirled of secret deals with authorities, of bribes paid for early release, of millions stashed away in hidden locations across Argentina. To this day, the full extent of the loot remains a mystery. As for Fernando, the artist turned mastermind, he served his time and returned to his life as an artist. But now, his canvases told a different story. They were filled with scenes of tunnels, bank vaults, and boats floating through sewers, a visual testament to the adventure that had consumed 2 years of his life. In the years since the heist, the story has taken on an almost mythical quality in Argentina. Books have been written, documentaries filmed, and there's even talk of a Hollywood movie in the works. The Banco Río heist has become a part of Buenos Aires folklore, a tale of ordinary men who dared to dream big, and for a brief moment, got away with it. So, what can we take away from this extraordinary tale? Perhaps it's a reminder that truth is often stranger than fiction, or maybe it's a cautionary tale about the consequences of letting our imaginations run wild. Or could it be a commentary on the fine line between criminal and folk hero in a country with a history of economic instability and distrust of banks? Whatever lessons we might draw, one thing is certain. The story of Fernando Araujo and the Banco Río heist will continue to captivate imaginations for years to come. It's a testament to the power of creative thinking, meticulous planning, and perhaps just a touch of luck. And who knows, maybe somewhere in Buenos Aires, there's still a safety deposit box filled with unclaimed loot, waiting for the next dreamer with a wild plan and the courage to see it through.